Whitetails. This is our 2023 season. This is our last video of that trip. Enjoy. My son Matthew Cicero, my son-in-law Tom King, and myself are visiting with Mike Minton in Kentucky during the rut. We got here a little bit pre-rut and the light switch kicked on and the rut began. Now we have a tremendous amount of deer footage from all three cameras. My son-in-law Tom, Mike Minton even videoed a little bit. I don't have any of his footage in this video here. We're working on that. Maybe later date we'll start adding some of his footage to the videos, but mostly my son and I did the video, and Tom videoed one day. We decided to give him a camera as well, and this is the action that we've seen. You got does licking their noses, smelling for the bucks cruising, looking for the does, chasing, getting a little action in there. It's pretty exciting when the light switch kicks on and these deer start acting like they're frisky. Up until this point, it was hot. The deer activity was a little bit on the slow side. The weather's cooled off a little bit, and the deer are starting to act like they're in the rut. When you get in on them like this during the rut, it can be some exciting hunting. It can be some frustrating hunting too, because you got a buck chasing a doe. He's not predictable. Now this is a young buck here. We're obviously not going to take this buck. We're looking for something a little bit bigger. Nevertheless, they are fun to watch. Matthew's video in this scene right here. He had this, I think he called it a 7-point coming in. He'll stop, eat a few acorns, get back to chasing. The does ain't in heat yet, but they starting to smell right. And these younger bucks, they always tend to start the chasing a little bit earlier.
I don't know what spooked her, but something spooked her in that swamp. And she run out here under my tree. Now she's going back in there.
I don't know if you guys can hear in the background or not. There's a lot of noise, but somebody somewhere, crew is working on the road. You can hear a bulldozer and the tracks just squeaking like crazy. I don't know if that's got these deer on edge or not. I wouldn't assume that it would bother them. Activity is pretty far from here, but you can hear that noise now.
I just had another doe come running by me wide open like something was after her. I keep looking that way and I don't see anything. I'm hoping it's a big old buck chasing her. If it is, he lost her because she's way ahead of him.
Now this may be the deer that just ran by me 90 miles an hour, going back the direction that it ran from. Back to Matthew's place where he's hunting. He's got a little cowhorn spike. Coming in there looking for them does. Just sniffing, zigzagging, going up from one trail to the next, trying to locate a scent of something. He's just a-working that nose. When they in the rut like this, the bucks are cruising, they don't always walk a trail. They'll zigzag back and forth across known doe trails. But if you notice and pay attention, a lot of times they'll always work an edge. And the edge, I'm assuming, the does live in that bed area and the bucks know it, and they're going to go in there and work around the outer downwind side of that edge and try to catch scent of a doe. Sometimes they got the nose up in the air licking it, sometimes they got the nose on the ground checking the trails themselves. But that's pretty much how a buck will locate a doe most of the time. And sometimes they'll use their eyes and ears in a situation where they'll just stand up on a ridge and listen, or in an opening it's got multiple edges around them, and they'll just stand in a little open area out in the middle of a thicket and just stand there for, I've seen them stand for 10 solid minutes and never even move, just listening and trying to catch a limb break or something, and then they'll focus on that and take off, see if it's a doe or not. That's when you can call them, buddy. Now the does pretty much just go on about their business. I think sometimes they're a little more spooky than normal because they're being chased by does, but they'll just sit around and feed on acorns or whatever. And there's really two ways to go about hunting a buck during a rut. You can watch the areas that you think the bucks are going to be cruising, or you can watch the areas where you think the does are going to be feeding or just staying the majority of their day. At any rate, the bucks will be on the move searching for these does, and if you're in the vicinity of where these does are feeding or bedding, pretty much you can expect a buck to show up at any time. You don't know which direction he's going to come from. That's pretty much unpredictable, but you do know one thing: you're looking at what he's trying to find, so you're in a pretty good spot. You hear this other doe coming down the hill. Now there's a chance she may be getting chased by a buck the way she's acting. Looking at the deer's body language and trying to figure out what these deer are doing takes a little experience, but see how nervous she is? Got her nose working. I think she probably knows there's a buck in the area, and that buck in that area is probably looking for her or them. If she's starting to smell right, then she knows who the culprit's looking for. Maybe she ain't ready, so she's going to kind of try to run and be with the other deer, get away from him. I love hunting the rut. It's a love-hate relationship, though. I love the part where you can see all the action, but I hate the part where it's unpredictable. You got to take the good with the bad. Now you can pretty much count on the does wanting to feed sometime during mid-morning or the daytime. They're being chased. She found her an acorn. You can hear her crunching on it now. They got to eat sometime. Deer are pretty much dictated by what they do, by food, water, and security, and knowing when to hunt which. That can be a guessing game sometimes, but they can't run forever being chased without a little bit of energy, so they got to stop and eat sometimes. If you're on a good hot acorn tree, you can expect to see the deer there. This happens to be what I'm sitting on, is a series of acorn trees on a flat in between bedding and the main food source, which is a field, maybe a half mile, quarter mile to a half mile from me is a ag field. All these deer are probably heading to it. Mr. Spike, he found the does. This little Spike, I think, has been all over the property. I think I've filmed him. Matthew's filmed him. Tom's seen him. Mike's seen him. That or there's a bunch of little spikes that look like that. It's kind of funny, we were talking about spikes on the way up there. We never hardly see spikes in Kentucky. It's usually a forked horn or a rat buck of some sort. They just seem to have a little bit better genetics, and even the 1.5-year-old deer, might be a 4 or 6 point. But this trip we have absolutely seen a pile of spike deer. Maybe it was the year for spikes. Even the bucks coming through this little acorn flat stops to pick up a few here and there. I guess they get hungry too. I know that does is on their mind 90% of the time, but 10% of that time they gotta eat. Otherwise they'll starve themselves to death chasing does. I think this doe might have had a late start getting to the dinner table. All the other deer left behind her. Maybe she overslept. Looks like she might be in a hurry to catch up with the herd.
Well, I've seen 12 deer so far. They're all coming from the same basic area, but they're getting right here above me and they're splitting. They're either going down this ridge or the ridge across from me. Every deer. I ain't seen a shooter buck. Both bucks came on this ridge because it's, I think, thicker stem count, but maybe we'll see a big one. It's been a real fun evening. I've not seen any big bucks, but I have seen 20 deer total. I just had one more deer go by, make it even 20. Tom seen a 9-point chasing a doe. I'm not sure how many Matthew's seen. I will get back and talk about it later, but I think everybody's on deer today. Been a fun day. Good morning. I'm set up in an oak flat on the edge of bedding, and the morning's starting out pretty good.
I'm sitting in the same place that I was yesterday evening. The does left bedding going to feed. This morning I'm expecting to catch all those deer out there in the ag fields feeding, coming back to bed. Maybe if I can't catch a big one going to feed, maybe I can catch him going to bed, checking on these does. You got this many deer in the area, it's a pretty good place to sit. You can expect some kind of action to happen sooner or later. Now listen close to this doe. Turn your volume up. Yep, she smelt where I was stood there on the ground. Didn't like it, not one bit. But that was some pretty cool noises she was making right there.
Brrr. I thought it was a cow when I first heard it. It was loud. I said, well, I'm going to call her over here, see if I can get her close so I can hear her. And doggone, she can run down here to me. And I'm pretty sure the microphone picked that up pretty good. She didn't do it as loud right here under the tree as she was doing it up on the hill. But that was interesting.
You know, another good indicator that the rut's kicked in, if you're not seeing a whole lot of deer, but you see the young deer off by themselves, you've heard it 100 times, but it's true. That's a pretty good indicator. Now, Tom had been in a lot of action, seeing some bucks, and we decided to give him a camera. And as soon as we give him a camera, this buck comes doing all kind of things around his tree stand, just back and forth. Spent a lot of time real close proximity to this deer. And Tom was looking for something just a little bit bigger than this deer, but you can see this deer licking his nose. He's looking, searching for does. This is what a buck looks like a lot of times when they're cruising. They don't always just cruise along checking trails with their nose stuck to the ground, trotting like some of the younger bucks do. Once they get a little bit of age on them, this is probably not a real old deer, but you know, he's older, possibly 3.5. I'm 2.5 for sure. And you can tell by the demeanor of the deer, he's acting a little bit slower, more cautious. His search methods involved his nose, his ears, his eyes, and the flicker of the white tail, trying to get some other deer to possibly throw their tail up in the air and flicker back, catch that movement with his eyesight. They're just more patient until they actually catch up with the doe, and their excitement overrides their caution. This is kind of how they act when they're cruising along. I mean, this is majority of the time what I see when I see a cruising buck. Just stand there and he's just listening. He's looking. He's paying close attention. He's licking that nose constantly. So if you're expecting to see deer just chasing and running through the woods all the time during a rut, it's not going to happen. And Tom's about to have a heart attack with this deer right dead under his tree. He's like, man, if this was Alabama, I'd done shot that deer. Well, we are in Kentucky, and we're hoping for something a little bit bigger. Tom said the buck stayed gone for about 40 minutes to an hour maybe, and then he came back. So whatever this buck's looking for, whichever doe it is he's got on his mind, he's pretty convinced that she's in that area somewhere, and he ain't gonna give up on her. I never get tired of this stuff. Matthew's in a different area, and he's filming a smaller buck coming in. And this is the differences in the rut. People think a lot of times that when you're in the rut in a particular area that all the deer are doing the same behavior, but that's not true. Not all the does come into heat at the same exact time. Some does are kind of cut out from the herd and get chased by bucks. They're ready to breed. Maybe they're going through the woods bleating trying to find a buck herself, or they find these areas that they tend to wander to, and the chasing happens in these bottoms and draws. In this case, this scenario, you've got a buck feeding with a group of does on acorns. Now this buck, he's interested. He just doesn't act like he's very interested. He's around all these does, and the does ain't smelling right. He's not too excited, but he still wants to be around the does just in case, one of them starts to smell right. Of course, a bigger buck will probably come in there and take it away from him, but it's kind of interesting to see just a few ridges over. You got a buck feeding with a group of does, and then back in another place you've got a buck chasing a doe, and then maybe a couple of ridges over in another place you got a buck just cruising for does. Now while they're all feeding on acorns, one of these does, I guess, got smelling just right, or maybe he got feeling a little frisky and started chasing her around. And the other deer are stomping their feet, snorting. Yes, deer snort at other deer all the time. So if you're ever out there in the woods and you hear deer starting to snort, don't, especially during the rut, don't assume they're snorting at you. They could be snorting at each other. They could be snorting at a bobcat. Almost anything. They could just be listening to a noise they don't understand and start snorting. So snorting, unless they're snorting and stomping their foot and looking at me, doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Unless I know they're downwind of me and I know they're smelling me. And usually I can see that action. This buck's chasing this doe around. A lot of times you'll see these does, they'll just lay down when a buck's chasing. She gets tired of running. She ain't going to run. She's not ready to stand. She'll just lay down. Well, when she does that, the buck kind of just stands there, and he doesn't want to leave her, so he's in the vicinity, but he relaxes a little bit and maybe relieves a little bit of the tension on her. She's might lay there for an hour, and sometimes the buck will lay there beside her, and they'll both lay down together. You see a buck and a doe laying down together, you think, well, they're in lockdown mode. Not necessarily. This doe may not even be ready to stand, but she's got a young buck harassing her. He doesn't want to leave her, so she just lays down to keep him from chasing her. Kind of keep peace in the family, I guess you might say. I don't know. It's not something you see often. Usually when you see a buck laying down with a doe, especially if it's a mature buck, they are in lockdown mode, and he's trying to keep all the other bucks from finding her and starting to chase her and possibly take her away from him. Matthew's covered up in deer on this acorn flat. All this chasing, running around, rut activity, I guess has got these deer hungry. And deer always have to feed. They're a slave to their stomach. mentioned before that when you see the young fawns by themselves, that the mama's off being chased, or a good possibility of it. You can see these does and fawns are together, so you know these deer are not getting to the point where she's in heat. One thing you may notice is that deer was stomping her foot and kind of acted a little bit nervous, and this is the reason why. When you see a deer looking a direction, maybe they're feeding on acorns or it's relaxed and nothing's going on, all of a sudden they throw their head up, start looking in a direction, stomp their foot, act nervous, pay attention. Something's got their attention, and a lot of times it's a bigger buck. Matthew said he had a really hard time letting this buck walk. This is quite possibly the biggest buck he's ever let walk with a bow and arrow.
Should be good this evening. Tom's already got him one. He's excited, sending pictures, texting back and forth. I told him to take a bunch of pictures. Him with his bow. Nice deer too. Anyway, him and Mike they've already loaded it up in the ATV and they've hauled it out of the woods, so I guess they're cleaning it up right now. We'll have to go in town, get some ice, put it on in the ice chest here soon. We got plenty of time, hoping. Matthew and I are still in the woods, so we're hoping we might get lucky and kill 2 more. They've been up on their feet right now. Bucks are chasing does. We've seen a lot of activity. It's like a light switch went off in their heads. So, wind's in my favor. Wish me luck. Tom, tell him about your deer.
Well,
Come in here and tell him.
I climbed the tree and shot
He walked out and then I shot
it. It was 1 leaf away from not being found. I could barely see it. Went back out there about, I don't know, 130 or 140, somewhere right in there. Went out there, I left my bow in the tree from this morning. So I went to climb the tree, got all the way to the top, got my seat, wrapped it around the tree, got it all settled. About the time I turned around, he was coming up the hill. Didn't even have my release on or nothing. Bow ain't got an arrow knot. So I threw my release on real fast, grabbed my bow, got an arrow out, knocked it, and I ranged a tree where he was coming up, and the tree was like 23 yards. So I was like, all right, well, he never made it to that tree, and he was perfectly stopped, and he was perfectly broadside, so I shot right up under him. Well, after I'd done shot him and all that, I ranged, well, he's like 33 where he was standing, so no wonder I missed him. But he hopped once and then ran down there about, I don't know, I think it was like 25 yards, and he was facing me, trying to get downwind of me. So I knocked another arrow real fast, and then by the end he started turning away from me, and I just put it on him and shot, and it shot him back behind this back rib and came out right there about right behind that shoulder. Between me getting to the top of the tree and shooting both times was less than a minute. That's how quick this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be in the woods, ain't you?
Yeah, that was it. He ran out there, well, you probably say 50 yards, 40, 50 yards.
He was fired at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah. He went up there, bedded down, and in about 5 minutes he rolled over.
Congratulations, buddy. I know you're happy.
Yeah,
We got deer to take care of.
Yeah.
You gonna do the gutless
Thank God
method on her?
Oh, yeah.
I really thought y'all be done by the time I got out of the woods.
Well, I was going to do it, and I was going to stay here and finish, and he was like,
Waiting on you to help.
he was like, He said, "You think you'll be done with all that?" I said, "I should be at least close by the time y'all get out." And he's like, "Well, you want to do that, or just wait until all of us get here and we can help you? And you can come hunt with me." I was like, "I'm going with you." That's why you're going to kill the 200 incher now. But we didn't see no 200
You
incher.
ain't seen no 200 inches.
I didn't see a 200 incher, but I guarantee you I saw a 2 incher.
A 2 incher?
A 2 incher. Missing a couple of zeros. Pretty good deer right there.
Yeah. Glad we got one. Been a rough week. It's completely sharp. I don't think it's sharp at all, actually. Oh, you can smell that cedar. It's all rigged up.
Got some good long tines.
Yeah.
He looked pretty walking through the woods, didn't he?
Yeah. To get him out.
I'll get a reference on it. Some pretty long tines.
Yeah. Good looking buck.
So when you saw him coming through the woods, what'd you think?
Oh, I only seen him for about 2 seconds.
Ain't long enough to say he's a shooter.
Yeah.
And my
I
steer
just
was
remembered it was
eight
that.
foot from tail to nose. We'll get a tape measure. We'll measure yours, tail to nose. See what it
Where
is.
did this? There it is. It went right back behind the back rib. That's how hard a quartering he was.
You made a good shot on him. He didn't go long. 50 yards top.